If you take two individuals raised in different households, and one maybe was told they were loved a lot, but energetically they weren't embraced in a way, versus somebody who maybe wasn't, words of affirmation weren't as present in the household, but there was an energy of love and embrace present.
Yeah.
They will have two fundamentally different views of themselves as they go into the world.
Yeah.
There's this African proverb that says, a child who's not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth.
Okay, right.
There's a hardwired desire within us to belong.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I would love for you just to speak on that a little bit, because a lot of these programs that we're talking to function based off the belief that we're trying to belong because we don't feel like we do.
Yeah, which becomes, again, somewhat of a self-fulfilling prophecy in a bit of a deleterious way, right? Because if we are under the impression that we're separate and we want to belong, what we keep reinforcing is this feeling of detachment, right? So, and it's something that I would assert is one of the pivotal points in my life, like the 2x4 for me, Peter Crone, was really one of the precursors to me having these distinctions and insights was when my dad died, right? Because that was after my mum had died and I was an only child. So it was sort of this visceral experience of separation. It wasn't like I feel separate, but I'm married, but it's just my husband doesn't give me attention or my kids don't pay me any mind, they don't listen to me. And a lot of people have that experience of feeling separate or alone, even though they're in a community, they're in a family, or perhaps they're somewhat ostracized from their personal family. And look at what went on in these last 2 years of BS that, I think we share a lot of similar values around, like that mass psychosis process speaks to like really appealing to the fundamental desires of a human, like belonging, value, and security. So all of those were stripped away, and we could argue that was intentionally done so, like through media and whatever these people in power are telling us, right? Like, you're everything out there is dangerous. Don't touch your Amazon boxes. You're going to die. So you strip away security. And then obviously the sense of belonging is the big one that we're speaking to, which is you can't see your loved ones. And even if they're in sick care or in a hospital and, you can't go and say goodbye as they pass, like that's devastating. And then you're not essential. Like, so you strip away somebody's sense of self-worth, right? So then all of a sudden people are desperate and they'll do whatever you tell them, which again, a conversation for another time. But the belonging, I would say, is probably the most profound. And we could argue for multiple reasons that the reason being is that underneath it all, underneath the illusion of separation and diversity, there's actually just unity. Mm-hmm. So if perhaps not in a conscious way, but in a very profound primal way, our feeling is of belonging, like that's who we are, that we are part of, whether you call it the absolute consciousness, God, whatever word you use. But we're looking through this illusory sense of separation because Andre's there and Peter's here and like I'm over here, you're there. So clearly we're separate, right? So then what does Peter have to do to get Andre to accept him? Although now we found out you want to run away to the woods with me and have a child. So apparently I'm good.
Good.
I've found belonging. So that becomes like the motivating factor for a lot of people in their behavioral adaptations and their coping strategies is because of the primal feeling of not being loved and belonging, going back to your African proverb, which is beautiful. So when people really hear this, and maybe they can even right now, as I'm saying these words, recognize, wow, what are the manipulative methods I'm using in my own romantic relationships, my professional relationships, my family relationships, where I am under the impression that I have to be somebody in order to belong, which then only propagates the very feeling underneath the behavior that I don't fundamentally belong. And that is part of that freedom that I bring, is that like you can't not belong. You're part of the gang. You don't need a black card, American Express, right? Like you're in the gang. Like it's called humanity. You're here. Well done, right? Now, if you want to keep pretending you're not and then develop all of these very exhausting, by the way, like methods of trying to belong, whether it be like, for women, I feel the most amount of compassion. The pressure on a female these days, especially in the Western world, is just, it's pretty obscene, in terms of beauty, sexuality, like how you're supposed to look, the shape of your body, the size of your lips, the size of fill in the blank, right? It's like the fashion, the clothing, it's immense. And then they're supposed to also raise a family with like love and compassion and intelligence and give them the right food. And it's like, holy shit, like most guys don't understand the bandwidth of a woman, especially a mother. Yeah. So I think if we could perhaps give ourselves a break in that realm of belonging, it would ironically, make for a greater community of belonging because people could relate and go, oh my God, you're doing the same thing? Yeah, no. As long as I've been like a teenager, I've been under the impression that I have to be the subservient partner in order to be loved and accepted, and because that's how I was raised. So every boyfriend I've attracted or every girlfriend I've attracted has been more dominant. And it's like, now I've seen that. It's like, I don't want to do that anymore. It's like, okay, great. Like, so we could argue that the ultimate form of belonging is not me and other, but me and self. Know thyself. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. And that belonging it might seem counterintuitive, but it's almost like what I'm actually making space for, which really is the quintessential expression of love as far as I'm concerned, is I'm making space for the part of me that doesn't feel loved. That's real love, right? I'm making space I'm including, and I'm bringing the energy of belonging to the part of me that doesn't feel like it belongs. So for most people, the tendency, which is it's just madness when you look at it, is like that one of the qualities or characteristics of being human is I don't want to be human. So if you really get like the conundrum there, and why most people fail terribly is, no, the beauty of being human is to learn to embrace your humanity. So, like that to me is such a beautiful love affair.
Yeah.